Welcome to CareyBrosPros, the podcast for construction pros by construction pros, so you'll get the job done right the first time. Now, here are James and Morris Carey.
Glad to have you check in on this edition of CareyBrosPros. Yes, we are brothers and professional contractors. I'm James.
And I'm Morris. And one thing that can certainly bring a project to a screeching halt is when mold is found. When should you worry? And when is it an easy fix? Keeping yourself or your employee safe while helping the homeowner get over this hiccup can be tricky. That's why we've invited Dave Jones, who's the Vice President of CPMI Mold Remediation, based in Palm Desert, California, to join us. Welcome, Dave.
Good morning, Morris. Good morning, James. How are you this morning?
Very well, Dave. Thanks for taking time to join us and to be a part of the CareyBrosPros podcast. And believe me, anyone can discover mold in their home, even after conducting a thorough inspection. Even to someone like me with all of my years' experience after doing all the recommended inspections, I came across mold, and that led to my meeting Dave. Boy, what a big surprise.
Dave, let's get started with the basics. Say an electrician is at a home and he opens up a wall to complete a project and comes across some blotchy black stuff inside the wall. Does that always mean mold is present?
I would say 99% of the times the answer is yes. More so than an electrician, perhaps a plumber or an HVAC contractor might experience more mold or symptoms of mold or what they think is mold because there's generally water associated with it. Electrical, you wouldn't associate water with electric too often. It just may blow the circuit instead. I would say yes. If a plumber, if an HVAC contractor or a maintenance man opens up a wall and sees something black, the smartest thing for that person to do might be to just cover it up with some polyethylene and then tell the owner they need to have a mold inspection, some air testing, confirm that it's mold. But then on the other hand, James, EPA says if you see mold, you don't need to do the testing. And I advise my clients, don't spend the money on the testing. You have mold. So then the next phase is remediation.
If you see mold, don't do the testing because you have it. But wouldn't you want to know whether the mold is a health hazard? I mean, just because you see mold, does that mean it needs to be remediated?
Yes, EPA suggests that even. My training is through EPA instructors years ago and then continued for my certification every 5 years now, also through EPA instructors. Mold comes in generally three classifications as we talk about the common ones found in homes. And it could be classified as A, B, and C as far as hazard levels. A would be the worst, and a particular one called Stachybotrys is a classification A.
Right.
And it's commonly found where there's moisture that has continued to be there. Stachybotrys is going to be black in color, but almost all molds are black in color to your eye. Some molds have greenish color to them. Some of them have yellow color to them. But all molds can be considered to be a hazard to your health. And here's the reason I say that. For the very young and the very old, the immune systems are different than a middle-aged person or a person in their 20s or 30s. They're more susceptible to mold allergies, mold symptoms. I do an awful lot of testing, James and Morris, testing for new homes, for people buying homes. They just want to make sure there isn't any molds present in the house. A smart thing to do because, as in your case, you purchased and you wanted to do a little renovation or changing out appliance, and then voila, you find some black stuff on walls. And it turned into be pretty major. And that's been a common team for a lot of people that I test for, and it's been very expensive for them. So testing for new purchases might be something that a lot of people should be doing now. It's not that expensive to test beforehand.
What you're saying is I did my own home inspection, and I crawled under every cabinet, under every plumbing fixture, in the attic. There is no crawl space. It's a slab on grade. In every closet, corner to corner, top to bottom. I photographed everything. And when it came time to change the floor out, I needed to remove baseboard. I tore a piece of baseboard off and discovered this black mold. And of course, that led to mold everywhere. So what you're saying is what I could have done differently was I could have had a mold inspection, just like people do home inspections or roof inspections or heating and air conditioning inspections. Is that what you're saying, Dave?
It's exactly what I'm saying. When I'm called out just to do an inspection, let's say for somebody buying a house, but it could be somebody that's also lived there for several years, and all of a sudden they're smelling something and they feel, something's not right, and let's eliminate mold as the issue. I will typically, and again, focusing on it's a water issue. It needs moisture to grow mold. So with that in mind, I concentrate under kitchen sinks. I concentrate under vanity sinks, and I start looking for signs of swelling of the wood. Or in the case of kitchen cabinets, in the case of vanities, I'm looking for swelling of the toe kicks. Keeping in mind that water drops to the lowest level, and it will stay under the cabinets longer than it stays on the surface of the kitchen floor because it's dark in there. There's no air penetration there.
Wow.
It takes a lot longer for it to dry out there. Thus, it stays wet a lot longer, and the chances of mold growing there are 100% greater than out on the center of the kitchen floor.
So, Dave, how does a homeowner avoid a rude and expensive discovery after buying a home?
Well, before they buy the home, testing could be smart. The cost, in my case, is $450. For sampling purposes, we take generally 3 on the inside of a house, on the average house, 1 on the outside. Again, James Morris, we're always breathing mold in the outdoors, and it depends on the level. If the wind's blowing a lot more, you have a little more mold count on the outside. We use the outside test as our baseline, and we want it to be lower on the inside of the house. If it's the same level, then I'm thinking that the people left their doors and windows open. If it's much lower, then we say you don't have a problem there. Now, keeping in mind it's never going to be 0 on the inside of a house.
No.
Because every time you open a door, mold spores are blowing in. So what we wanted is way less than the outdoor. And then that's how we can say it's clean and it's okay for occupancy.
For this mold inspection that you make, you do a visual and you're going under cabinets and you're looking at swelled toe kicks and baseboards and that sort of thing. I get that. So you're making a visual inspection, but you're also doing, do I understand, sample collection? Are you swabbing and also doing an air quality analysis?
James, what we do is mainly air analysis, air sampling analysis. And here's the reason why. If you do a swab, and you know what a swab is because you brought it up, a swab is like a larger Q-tip. So when you put that swab on a wall, you're only seeing, and the recommendation is take about a square inch and swab it. That's all you're seeing. So you're not seeing what's moving in the air, and you're not seeing past that 1 square inch.
Mm-hmm.
The other sample is a surface sample. But once again, it's even a smaller area. It's a sticky tape, and the area of collection there is maybe 1/4 inch by 1 inch. Once again, you're not seeing the whole picture. You're only seeing that little area. So generally for me to go into a home or a business, I like air sampling. Now, if a person wants to know more about the species of mold, then I might do a surface sample or a swab sample on that. But my air samples tell me the types of mold, the concentration of mold, and gives me, there's over 2,000 species of mold out there. Just in each category, there could be a couple hundred species within a category of mold. So not all of them are harmful. And some of them, like the most commons are Aspergillus penicillium, we breathe that indoors and outdoors every day of our life. What we don't want to be breathing is very high concentrations of those molds.
Got it. So from a pro's perspective, Dave, as with Morris's electrician's example earlier, or a builder doing a remodel, when we come across a situation that appears to be mold, what should our next step be, Dave?
I think what we train for our own people is employee protection, number one. So let's say that person has already opened up something. If they don't want to deal with it any further, they should close it up and have the owner call a professional. And then in that case, it's most likely mold if they think it's mold and it's black, and it generally is. And then they should have it remediated before they go further. That would be my best suggestion. And if they continue to do it themselves and work through a process, they should protect themselves. They should wear respirators. They should wear plastic gloves. They should avoid having the mold spores get into their clothing. Then they take it home. They throw their clothes on the floor. Someday it gets to the wash machine, that sort of thing. But what they're doing is transporting the mold spores to another project, what they're doing. And in this case, it might be their house. In this case, it might be the next call that they make. So when you look at the black stuff on a wall, that's what we call a colony. What you cannot see is you can't see the spores that are floating in the air. That's why we do air sampling and send it to a lab. And that lab breaks those samples apart and reads them under a microscope, and they count the number of mold spores.
So
sounds like a boring job, but it's their business.
Yeah, so I'm a builder, and I'm doing a new house or a remodel. What is it that I can do to prevent mold from occurring in the first place?
That's a great question. One of my mentors in the building is a microbiologist. His name was Ray Narconis. He's out of St. Louis, Missouri. And in that area of the Midwest, we get a lot more rain than we have here in California. So construction projects typically are made of wood. A lot of construction projects could have their products delivered to a site, and it may sit there for a week or two before it's used, especially in multi-story kind of situations. And the reason we'll stock that job, as we say, is because sometimes it gets tighter to get it in there after we have a roof on and the windows in. So let's say it's wood, for instance, and then let's say it just happened to rain a few days ago. I think you should be cautious of the mold growth that might be on the wood that you're using in that new home. If it happens to be drywall, for instance, that wasn't protected, and it rained, the same thing. I would be looking for signs of mold before you just nail it up and let it be the new homeowner's problem. My friend that I mentioned would test regularly for high-rise, 3 and 4 story, not necessarily a high-rise, but buildings for builders, because there's been a lot of cases where the wet lumber stayed wet too long and then started growing mold. And it got covered up too quick. I mean, everything in our business is speed. We want to build things fast, so we're on time, so we're making a profit at the end of the job. Yeah. But sometimes it's very hard to slow down when you think you're going to have a problem. It's a hard call for most of us to do, but it's a safe call in some of those cases. Some things just need to be dried out then before they're installed.
Boy, that's a fact. Okay, Dave, we like to wrap up our chats on CareyBrosPros by asking our guests to share their 3 points for success And so it's your turn. What tips would you like to leave with our pro listeners?